Welcome to our immigration briefing. Today, we kick off with a lively scene from Honolulu, where around 10,000 to 22,000 people gathered peacefully outside the Hawaii state capitol for the No Dictators protest. Participants of all ages voiced their concerns about policies they see as authoritarian, including immigration, environmental issues, and threats to democracy. It was inspiring to see a strong show of civic engagement, with many young folks and workers standing up for democratic principles amidst some political tension. Next, we turn to a new rule at the U.S. Canada border affecting Canadian snowbirds. Starting November 1st, long-term visitors will need to go through fingerprinting and photo-taking to register with U.S. authorities. While some can pre-apply online, others face the full process at the border, causing some confusion and frustration. Experts suggest that filling out the USCIS G-325R form online might be a smoother alternative, but travelers are advised to check specific procedures to avoid surprises. Finally, in Boston, a powerful No Kings protest took center stage, with Mayor Michelle Wu and local lawmakers criticizing President Trump's policies and leadership style. The event drew a diverse crowd advocating for democracy, civil rights, and opposition to authoritarianism. With speeches, music, and signs, the protesters emphasized unity and the importance of resisting government overreach. Overall, these demonstrations show a strong push for democracy and social justice across the nation. Please continue to stay tuned for more detailed coverage. The Honolulu Star-Advertiser vividly captured the massive turnout of thousands of peaceful protesters rallying against what they see as the threat of dictatorship under President Trump. The event, dubbed No Dictators in Hawaii, drew a diverse crowd of all ages and backgrounds, united by signs, some handmade, some professionally printed, bearing messages that ranged from poignant calls for democracy to humorous and provocative slogans. As they marched along Baratania Street and gathered outside the state capitol, the crowd's energy was palpable, with drums and didgeridoo rhythms fueling chants of resistance. Community members like Martha Ross and Chris Lindquist expressed hope and pride in their collective action, emphasizing the importance of standing up for democratic values despite Hawaii's small size. The demonstration was notably large, with estimates of around 10,000 attendees on Oahu alone, and it featured a mix of passionate citizens, including young college students and veterans, all united in their opposition to Trump's policies and rhetoric. Some pro-Trump voices attempted to infiltrate the crowd, but they were overshadowed by the overwhelming presence of protesters committed to defending their rights and opposing authoritarian tendencies. CNN reported on the San Jose Sharks' apology after an offensive message appeared during their Hispanic Heritage Night celebration, revealing the fragility of corporate and team sensitivities in the face of social issues. During the game against the Pittsburgh Penguins, the scoreboard unexpectedly displayed a message reading, "SJ Sharks fans love ice. Getting boys." A phrase interpreted by many as an inappropriate praise for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. Fans, including Jessica Clark, expressed outrage and disappointment, feeling that the message was offensive and out of place during a culturally significant event celebrating the Hispanic community. The Sharks quickly issued a formal apology, explaining that the message was externally submitted and not reflective of their values, and they assured the public that an internal investigation was underway. This incident highlighted the importance of vigilance and sensitivity in public displays, especially during events meant to honor diverse communities, and underscored the potential fallout when messages are mishandled or misjudged in the public eye. The Honolulu Star-Advertiser also provided clarity on the upcoming changes to SNAP eligibility, especially concerning non-citizens, which stirred concern among many residents. The new federal regulations, effective November 1st, will exclude certain categories of non-citizens from receiving food assistance, but existing recipients will retain their benefits until their next recertification. The article detailed how income from ineligible non-citizens must still be reported and included in household calculations, often affecting the eligibility of entire families, including U.S. citizens. Advocates and affected individuals voiced fears about the impact of these policies, with some federal workers and immigrants worried about retaliation and job security amid political debates. Despite the controversy, some groups like COFA migrants and lawful residents will continue to qualify, but others, such as refugees and asylees, face losing access. The article underscored the complex, often contentious intersection of immigration policy and social welfare, illustrating how these changes could reshape the support network for Hawaii's vulnerable populations. The BBC highlights a concerted effort to combat misinformation surrounding immigration in northeast England through a straightforward, fact-based leaflet. This initiative aims to dispel myths and foster understanding by presenting accurate statistics, such as the fact that only 0.3% of the region's population are asylum seekers. Local police and crime commissioners emphasize their role in promoting community cohesion and safety, believing that providing the public with truthful information can counteract the rising tide of misinformation and hostility. The leaflet, supported by the Northeast Migration Partnership, seeks to replace fiction with facts and hatred with understanding, underscoring the importance of community dialogue amid recent protests and counter-protests over illegal immigration. The Associated Press describes how recent federal and state policies are complicating disaster response efforts across the United States, especially amid ongoing government shutdowns and legal battles. State emergency agencies report that cuts in federal security grants, restrictions on preparedness funds, and delays caused by litigation threaten their ability to respond efficiently to crises like climate disasters and cyber attacks. For instance, FEMA's new requirement to exclude undocumented immigrants from population counts has led to confusion and scrambling for data, while the reduction of risk-based grants has resulted in significant funding cuts for states such as New York and Illinois, reductions challenged in court. These disruptions are causing delays in critical projects, staffing, and resource procurement, risking the safety and resilience of communities already vulnerable to natural and human-made threats. CBC details the new registration procedures faced by Canadian snowbirds traveling to the U.S., with reports of fingerprinting, photographing, and fees at border crossings. These measures stem from an executive order requiring long-term visitors to register with U.S. authorities, intended to strengthen border security and identity verification. However, inconsistent enforcement and confusion over options, such as pre-registering online, applying for an I-94 form, or submitting a USCIS G-325R form, have left many travelers uncertain about the process. Some travelers are frustrated by conflicting information from border officers and the additional costs involved, with concerns over whether they are being given proper options. The involvement of separate agencies, CBP and USCIS, further complicates the process, leading to questions about the most seamless way for long-term visitors to comply without unnecessary hassle or legal risk. From USA Today, the narrative of cruise travel unveils a surprising flexibility for U.S. citizens, revealing that many can embark on closed-loop cruises, those that start and end at the same U.S. port, without the traditional passport. Imagine setting sail from Fort Lauderdale, visiting exotic ports like Bermuda or Cancun, and returning home, all with just a birth certificate or a government-issued ID in hand. This loophole offers convenience, especially for those who haven't renewed their passports or prefer not to carry them. Yet, the story warns travelers to tread carefully. Policies vary by cruise line, and complications can arise if unforeseen circumstances demand flying home from abroad, where a passport becomes indispensable. The peace of mind that comes with having a passport, even if technically optional, is emphasized as a wise precaution, ensuring smooth sailing and avoiding last-minute stress amid the unpredictable nature of travel documentation. Meanwhile, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation paints a vivid picture of rising tensions across Australian cities, especially Melbourne, where protests have turned volatile. The streets are alive with passionate demonstrations, some waving Australian flags, others brandishing anti-immigration banners, clashing with counter-protesters advocating for multicultural inclusivity. In Melbourne, riot police in full gear deploy pepper spray, flashbangs, and rubber bullets as crowds hurl rocks, bottles, and rotten fruit, leading to injuries among officers and arrests of protesters. These clashes are fueled by deeply rooted ideological divides, with groups like March for Australia advocating for stricter immigration controls, while counter-protesters, including First Nations communities and multicultural advocates, stand united against hate. The scenes are charged with emotion, loud chants, and smoke, illustrating a society grappling with its identity amid rising nationalism and anti-racism sentiments, with each city reflecting the broader national debate on immigration, cultural integration, and social cohesion. The Sydney Morning Herald further captures the intensity of Australia's cultural clash, highlighting the emergence of pro-migration counter-rallies that stand in stark contrast to anti-immigration protests. In Melbourne's CBD, hundreds of pro-migration advocates, led by First Nations people, marched through the streets chanting slogans like "Refugees are welcome here," confronting the divisive narratives propagated by nationalist groups. Police meticulously check bags and monitor the crowds, aiming to prevent violence, as speakers emphasize unity and the importance of fighting divisive ideologies. Across other cities like Sydney, Brisbane, and Adelaide, similar rallies unfold, with participants waving Australian and Eureka flags, and expressing concerns over mass migration, housing shortages, and social services. The scenes reflect a society at a crossroads, where voices of inclusion stand against the rising tide of nationalism and neo-Nazi elements, illustrating Australia's ongoing struggle to reconcile its multicultural identity with the currents of far-right populism. The Boston 25 News staff reports on a powerful demonstration where Mayor Michelle Wu and Massachusetts lawmakers voiced their fierce opposition to President Donald Trump's policies during the No Kings protest at Boston Common. Wu passionately declared that Boston, a city built on immigrant and working-class values, has long rejected monarchy and authoritarianism, criticizing Trump's recent threats to relocate the 2026 FIFA World Cup Games and his crackdown on undocumented immigrants. The protest attracted prominent figures like Senators Elizabeth Warren and Edward Markey, who condemned Trump's behavior as tyrannical and un-American, emphasizing that mass peaceful protests are a true expression of patriotism. The event, part of a nationwide movement, was a vibrant display of resistance against what protesters see as Trump's increasing authoritarian excesses, with signs reading, "Fight Fascism" and "We are not okay," highlighting the deep tensions between the administration and the American people. The Globe and Mail highlights the massive No Kings protests across the United States, where hundreds of thousands, including young immigrants like Claudia Calix, gathered to oppose Trump's immigration policies and the broader assault on civil liberties. Calix, whose parents from Honduras faced ICE raids and threats of deportation, expressed heartbreak and fear over the administration's crackdown, which has led to over 1,400 arrests in Boston and beyond. The demonstrations also targeted Trump's efforts to undermine social safety nets, such as cuts to Medicaid and food assistance programs, and his attempts to silence dissent through lawsuits and threats against media outlets. The protests coincided with a government shutdown, intensifying the political climate of unrest. Notable figures like Senator Bernie Sanders condemned Trump's actions, equating his leadership to a constitutional crisis, while protesters dressed in humorous costumes like frogs and Uncle Sam to mock and challenge the administration's authority, turning the streets into a lively battleground of resistance and hope. Yahoo U.S. reports from Indianapolis reveal a similarly charged atmosphere during the No Kings protest at the Indiana State House, where over 5,000 demonstrators voiced their opposition to Trump's immigration raids, redistricting efforts, and attacks on free speech. Participants, including Carla Lopez Owens and Danielle Cooney, expressed personal stories of immigrant hardship and frustration with policies that threaten their community's safety and rights. The rally also saw fierce criticism of Trump's push to redraw congressional boundaries in Indiana, which many see as an attempt to manipulate electoral outcomes. Amid peaceful protests, a tense moment arose when a man with a firearm was asked to leave the premises, reflecting the heightened tensions surrounding the event. Organized by groups like Indivisible Central Indiana and supported by civil liberties organizations, the demonstration underscored the widespread discontent with Trump's administration, illustrating how grassroots activism continues to mobilize Americans across the political spectrum to defend democracy and civil rights. BBC reports on Subramaniam Vedam, a man who was wrongfully imprisoned for over 4 decades, serving 43 years for a murder he did not commit. The story highlights the tragic injustice of his case, where new evidence finally exonerated him, yet he was still detained by U.S. immigration authorities due to an existing deportation order. Vedam, who moved to the U.S. as a baby and has no real ties to India, faces deportation to a country he barely remembers, despite his family's efforts to fight for his freedom and his exemplary conduct while incarcerated. His case underscores the profound flaws in the justice and immigration systems, emphasizing the emotional toll on his family and the importance of considering a person's entire life and contributions when making legal decisions. Nikkei Asia sheds light on South Korea's hypocritical stance on human rights amid recent anti-Chinese protests. The protests erupted after a large U.S. immigration raid at a Hyundai LG battery plant in Georgia, where many South Korean workers were detained. While Koreans expressed outrage over the mistreatment of their compatriots abroad, they simultaneously engaged in racist demonstrations against Chinese residents within Korea, fueled by misinformation and fears linked to geopolitical tensions and domestic political conspiracies. This double standard reveals a troubling inconsistency. Koreans demand justice for their own but fail to extend the same respect and dignity to foreign minorities within their borders, exposing a broader issue of racial discrimination and the need for stronger anti-racism laws. Yahoo U.S. reports on Boston's No Kings protest, a peaceful demonstration against the authoritarian excesses of the Trump administration. Thousands gathered in Boston Common, where community leaders, musicians, and politicians voiced their opposition to government abuses, emphasizing the importance of democracy and civic participation. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu passionately declared, "In Boston, every day is no King's Day," symbolizing the city's rejection of tyranny. The event featured lively speeches, music, and signs calling for justice, reflecting a collective desire to uphold democratic values amid fears of rising authoritarianism and injustice. The protest exemplifies how grassroots activism continues to thrive in the U.S., reinforcing the power of peaceful assembly to challenge corruption and defend civil liberties. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.
Scrolling through the headlines, another crazy day. 6 degrees of stories, connecting in their way. From the weather to the sports, and everything we see. People making news on TV screens for free. 6-degree world, where the news comes in a whirl. Every story ties together like a ribbon in a twirl. Sit back and watch it all, big and small they call. From city lights to countryside, we're connected after all. From city lights to countryside, we're connected after all. The laugh, the cry aside, news is flying high. No matter where you are, you'll never fall from the buzz. 6-degree world, where the news comes in a whirl. Every story ties together